Today, we are learning about the options you can get from a luthier. And today, I have my friend, my luthier, Edgar. I wanted Edgar to say hello to everyone. Hi, Edgar.
Hello, hello. Ciao a tutti from Italy, from Cremona. It's nice to see you here. This is a new experience for me. Usually I'm never doing it with a thing like this. Usually Jonathan comes to Cremona and we have aperitivo and we're recording and adjusting and talking and like this. But now we make it this way. It's a new experience.
So I just want to get right to the point of this video. We want to learn about my students, but also people online. We just want to learn in like one quick way of how you see a cello and how we would see a cello and what we should expect from the sound of the cello as opposed to what you know from the sound of the cello. So as an example, today we're going to talk about Edgar's two different lines, his Scala Perfetta and his Linea Machi. And we're going to start with the Scala Perfetta. Talk a little bit about it, and we're going to talk about the three models that you have available. So what is the Scala Perfetta model available from your shop?
The Scala Perfetta, the concept is that it is made completely outside of my workshop in Europe, actually in Germany. To make those instruments, they use machinery. I know that people who want to, when they buy, they always want to hear that it's all handmade. It's impossible for these kind of prices, less than 10,000, make something completely by hand and guarantee for a steady quality, okay? So I get those instruments in the white, and then we retouch them, we varnish them, we make the fingerboard exactly the same way like it is on my master instrument, perfect because the sound is created on the fingerboard. The bridge has to be for that cello perfectly made in order that it sounds great. And those are some fundamental characteristics over all my lines of instruments, okay? You have to understand that there is a huge difference between a Scala Perfetta and a Linea Machi, okay? The Linea Machi is made completely in my workshop. That's why in the flyer I have here, I don't know, oops, sorry, I have here the workshop like this inside, and if you go now in the other room over there, you see the workshop is made here. If you come and you have the chance to visit Cremona, you will see that we're working, making scroll and the purfling, the ribs, everything. When you get in, you see the pieces. You can choose what you want, your preference, and everything.
Before we jump ahead to this, the Linea Machi, I want to ask more specifically about the models. And I noticed on your website you do have some of these models. For instance, we have three models here. That was twinkle, twinkle. We have three models here, which my students and you can also get. So please tell me what model this is.
This is a Stradivari. The Stradivari is a little bit the classic shape for instruments, for violins, for viola, for cello, because Stradivari was the first one who was a maniac when it came to precision, when it came to the concept of the instrument, because before he was making his instrument, all of that didn't exist. And now you have to imagine you sit down with a pencil on a sheet of paper and you have to design something, and then you have to get it made, okay? And in his workshop there were 15 people working, and he had a great system at that time without copy machines, cameras, photographs and stuff like this to create instruments with such a perfect outline. And that outline was also very perfect to create a very great and equilibrated sound.
When you look at this, we're looking at a Stradivari, and what defines a Stradivari cello? So from its shape, what can we know from its shape when we're just looking at it?
Typically that it seems a little bit long, the body, and all all curves, the upper and the lower, are very similar, just that the upper one is a little bit smaller. The C very equilibrated, the corners, everything. Now, while I'm talking about this, if some colleagues are looking at this video, they will just say, oh my God, they are looking at a machine-made cello and they're talking about certain models, okay?
Well, that's a lot of us in the world. That's what we can afford.
I know, but even from the picture I can tell that, okay?
From the picture?
Okay. Yes, okay. Because it's too perfect, too symmetric, too precise. Now, nowadays we are common, everybody is used and trained by our looking that everything is precise, and our sense of beautiness is certainly spoiled because we are used to work with computers, and with a mouse click we can make very, very perfect things, okay? In real life, when you're working and you're bending the ribs, the material doesn't always move exactly like that, okay? And so you have, even Stradivari had problems that they didn't turn out 100% symmetric. He, with his eyes and his tools, then he adjusted these small minor mistakes in order to make it appear symmetric, but if you look it on a computer or on making a copy and turning it over and overlapping, then you see that it is not symmetric, while this one is too symmetric.
What sort of sound will they get from a Stradivari cello, even on the Scala Perfetta level?
The model itself, that it sounds exactly how that model is made for, is only available if everything else of the instrument is made perfect. So a Stradivari sounds focused, nice projecting, and beautiful, a beautiful sound.
I'm going to flick to another one. What is this cello? This is another Scala Perfetta model that you offer. What is this?
This one here is a Guadagnini.
Guadagnini.
Yes.
Not to be confused with
Guarneri.
Guarneri.
There are some German makers, and I even have one here with Guarneri F-holes, but Guarneri del Gesù never made a cello, okay? So there is a book about violin making where they even in the backside put it in a plan for a cello, a Guarneri del Gesù, but I don't know a Guarneri del Gesù original one. It's more a fantasy creation. Probably people thought, let's make a Guarneri del Gesù, which is very nice, but the Guarneri cellos which exist are from a different part of the family, is not Guarneri del Gesù, but is Pietro Guarneri di Mantova, which is completely different issue. If you have these books about violin making and you see in the front where all the makers were working and the families and all that, you will see that Guarneri is not Guarneri, and that creates a little bit of confusion, okay?
Thank you for clearing that up for me.
Okay.
But this is a Guadagnini. What we're looking at here is a Guadagnini. I see this, I see a nice pretty cello. I see this, I see a nice pretty cello. But that was the Stradivari, this is a Guadagnini. What makes this different?
It makes different that where the neck comes into the body, the ribs are more straight out, and then the shoulders go a little bit later down. So it's a little bit more like the shoulders are a little bit more up, while in the lower area it's a different shape. So the lower area and the upper is different shaped, while here on the Stradivari those two lines are very similar. It's just that the upper line is a little bit smaller.
Now that you pointed out, I can see that the upper bouts, the shoulders, if you will, are more, I guess you could say they're more, when you go here, they're more flat. They come out and they're more like, you know, square, broad-shouldered on this side. Of course, this is Ruggieri. We're not talking about that cello at the moment. So that, it was interesting that you brought that up. Why would you option to offer the Guadagnini cello?
Actually, I offer it rather for people who want something a little bit different and a little bit more particular. Sound-wise, it's very similar to the Stradivari.
That was my next question. So how does it sound compared to what? So you said beautiful and focused would be the Stradivari, this cello?
The Guadagnini is more or less the same. It doesn't make a huge difference. Then certainly, if you have two cellos, there's always a difference. It's not that every cello sounds the same, but it's there's no reason actually sound-wise that one says I want a Guadagnini. It's more that they want something a little bit different than the one they had before or something like this.
And if you like that look with those square shoulders, then maybe this is the cello for you. But then let's talk about the elephant in the room I keep passing over. This beautiful red lady. And as you notice, if you're looking at this is quite different. She's a big girl. She got hips. What cello is this?
I don't make them this red like this picture on your. I don't know where you got these pictures from, or at least it
gave them to me.
I gave them to you. I don't remember. Maybe I took them from another web page just to show you the difference, and I thought this is a good example. But the colors, even the yellow Stradivari like this, it's not exactly my colors I would prefer. But certainly, if you want a color like this, I can do it.
Tell us. This is a Montagnana, I believe.
That's the Montagnana. And the most famous Montagnana then is the Sleeping Beauty. So, but it's always the Montagnana, Domenico Montagnana from Venice, was working in Venice. This man was a lucky man. He was living and working in Venice, something I would love to do. You have to imagine that Montagnana worked very precise, at the point that you even find very often nowadays an original Stradivari cello with a Montagnana scroll. So that shows already that the way Montagnana was working was already very precise. The model itself, the body, you can see that it's like the C's smaller and pulled out, okay? So it's kind of strange, the shape. It's not so equilibrate. Yeah? I can understand if somebody says it's not so beautiful.
On the naked eye, the untrained eye, very much you can tell that is a much wider instrument. And it is the sound that we're looking for. It is this modern, I consider it the modern sound of the cello. And people call it dark, they call it somber, they call it deep. It's that deep sound. How would you describe the sound of the Montagnana?
I would call it more richer, and especially on the deeper strings. I think what really attracts me on a Montagnana is that I have this impression that these deep strings are like rolling. I don't know, this is something, it just, you know, it comes from, it doesn't come like a bird, beep, 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 but it comes from underneath, and it really covers the whole entire room where you are, and it touches you more. That's what I believe.
And I'm happy to say that the Montagnana does fit, the one that you get Scala Perfetta, does fit in a basic cello case. It's a big issue because some of them are made on the wider side. Not all Montagnana copies. We have to all understand that these are copies of master instruments, but every maker from every country, everywhere, makes it slightly different. Some are super wide. And there's a great Chinese maker, Ming, that makes great cellos, and his Montagnana is just super wide. I like it, but it doesn't fit in my BAM cello case. I'm happy to say that the Montagnana that comes from your shop, the Scala Perfetta, does fit in a regular sized cello case. You can slap a name on something. Like this is a 1675 Ruggieri, which I'm proud to say that you made by hand. But just to call it that, like it's modeled after that, which you go online, you see a lot of these things, and they come from places like Romania and China, America, Europe, South America. But just to call it that isn't enough. What you're saying that the maker truly has to respect these little details, 8mm length differences, to understand the detail, all the little minutia that goes into making these instruments, and it makes a difference. And I have to tell you, it does make a difference. You have just a treasure trove of books behind you, where you have, and of course you live in Cremona, and this is one thing I've want to ask people. Yeah, there's all those books up there. Is Edgar lives in Cremona, the place where Stradivari, Guadagnini, Amati, all these makers made their instruments. Is there anything besides being Italian and Cremonese? Is there like an X factor from buying from not just you but any violin maker or cello maker there in Cremona that would set you apart from anyone else in the world? Is there some little special sauce that you guys only share amongst each other?
When I opened my workshop, we were like 36 or 38 makers, and I'm now in business, let's say, more than 30 years. The competitors here became 160 workshops, and that means that the competition certainly grew. The city, what offers you, pushes you automatically up, so you have such a great choice, and you certainly have a very, very high level of making. And this is a benefit for every customer who buys something from Cremona, especially directly from Cremona, Italy.
What is a cello in the white? You said this term, in the white. What is it? What is in the white? You have to tell us this. What does this mean?
A cello in the white is, I have to show you. Okay, this is very nice. I have to show you. A cello in the white looks like this.
Gosh, what is this cello?
This is a Montagnana Linea Macchi, and Mina yesterday put it in the neck, and we are actually ready for varnishing. I put it here, this pin inside, and then we put it into a thing which is holding the cello, and then we start varnishing. But then I said, keep it like this. It's nice to show to Jonathan and his friends. This is a Montagnana, just like the red one you showed before. This is the Montagnana. This is now a copy of the Sleeping Beauty Montagnana, Domenico Montagnana.
And that is a Linea Macchi, which in your...
This is a Linea Macchi, yes.
Linea Macchi, now moving to the next level. These are instruments, as I've learned, and he will correct me, that are 100% handmade in Edgar's shop. You choose everything. You choose the wood, you choose the varnish, you choose the shape, you choose the end pin, of course, all those things, and it doesn't cut, so it's hand built in your shop.
The fact that you take away some wood by hand makes the sound better. This is not the key point. The key point is the more time you have as a maker to touch the wood and collect experience and response of how the wood is moving, reacting, and the consistency, and how it has been grown, and you understand everything of this piece of wood you're working on, the more you can adjust minor changes in order that you get the maximum out of it. A Linea Macchi costs certainly much more, but then certainly having a handcrafted made instruments, Linea Macchi, is already another dimension. Everybody who makes the step from the Scala Perfetta to the Linea Macchi, they will immediately hear it. And if there would be a way that I could make it like this and it sounds that great, I would just make hundreds of it, but it's impossible. At a certain point you have to cool down and you have to make it by hand, by yourself. The instruments I'm making right now, these precious instruments, everything is made by hand. There is no machinery which can collect these informations which are important for the maker to make something which sounds at a certain point.
And that's a question I was going to ask, is about the Linea Macchi. It seems like because a lot of people, when they think about like a handmade cello, it's made by one person only. Like, this is your master cello, you signed it, you made it 100%, no one else touched it. But Linea Macchi is unique because it's your shop that creates it. It's not just you, it's still hand built, but is it true? It's everyone in your shop.
Yes, we make it, and so if someone has a little bit a moment where he doesn't know what to do, or let's do this one or that one, then one is fitting the bass bar, the other one is bending his own ribs, so he's bending also the ribs for the linea Macchi. You cut one thing, then you make also that one immediately, and so they grow next to each other, and we all work on those instruments. But there's a difference if you have something you are working all by yourself or everybody works together. This is a little bit the concept of the linea Macchi. So even myself, I work on the linea Macchi. So you also buy a little bit of my time, certainly.
Going back to In the White, talking about what these instruments are made of is the wood. Now, a Scala Perfetta comes from Germany with European wood, and I like to know the age of the wood on those. People would also like to know, and then we go to linea Macchi, talk about the type of wood, like the age of the wood per se, and then if you could also show the difference between the age group of something that is, I guess you've used the word seasoned wood, and then a wood that is, I guess you would, the one you just showed right now. So before the varnish goes on them, let's talk about the age of the wood and what's available for the linea Macchi and the Scala Perfetta and the Master Cello. Do you have an example of the different seasoning of wood?
Generally speaking, there's no sense of using fresh wood, okay?
You guys probably know, and you share amongst each other, what is fresh wood, what is seasoned wood. So what does this mean in the context of someone who doesn't know anything about this?
When you cut a tree, usually you cut it in wintertime, when the tree doesn't soak water up and is pulling up the water. A tree in spring is drinking a lot in order that he can grow, okay? In wintertime, this process is a little bit cooled down, so that's why they cut the tree in wintertime, and then still the wood is like in winter up in the mountain is cold, it's like ice completely, okay? So when you cut your tree, you would be surprised how much of the weight of a fresh cut tree, how heavy it is. And if you get it brought from the mountains down to Cremona, the truck is even losing water behind because there's so much water getting out, okay? Once it is here in Cremona, then you have to be very cautious in order that there's a regularly wind blowing, otherwise it gets some moisture inside, which is not very nice to look at. Then the wood becomes like blue and black and stuff like this, and you don't like that. And then you keep it like this for years. And you always have to turn it. It doesn't have to be too quick, otherwise it's cracking. We don't put anything in any oven, and that's why we actually, in order to be sure that the wood has never been treated and went through some shock therapies, we prefer to go directly ourselves up into the mountain, get the entire trees, cut it with the chainsaw in the right lengths, split it with some like chisels, and then you hammer that into the round piece of spruce, and then you turn it, and then you would be surprised how easy it is to split these in towards the length. Right now the wood I'm using is approximately, I would say, I came in here in 2004, so it's a 17 year season is the freshest wood I have, okay? Certainly it also happens to me that I can find some wood which is well seasoned, and for well seasoned I mean much more than I am actually making a violin maker. If you look on the back side, you can see here this dark, up like this one here is much darker than the other one.
Yes, I do.
And I think there are like these additional 30 years which make it that the wood inside gets so dark. This is like 30-40 years more than the other one. This is a long process that the wood gets this antique dark looking inside.
Would you be so kind as to bring it a little bit closer so we can see the difference between, and what are these type of cellos, what are these going to be for? I see two different colors, so obviously one wood is more rare than the other one, I guess, or older. And what sort of instruments will these cellos be made into?
This one here is a well seasoned. I don't believe that you see it so well here. Huh? Believe me that this well seasoned one, I make my master cellos exclusively, and it would be a pity to use it for a Scala Perfetta or a Linea Macchi. I just think this is not worth it. It takes so many years to have something so old. The top of your 7/8 Ruggeri was also very, very well seasoned, and I think it's a pity to use so well seasoned wood for actually a very economic instrument. While a master instrument, you can feel the difference, and it makes sense to use such precious wood.
Do you cut the trees yourself?
In 2004, I cut myself, and there was like 2 weeks of working in the winter because you
went up in the tree. You went up to the forest and you cut them yourself.
Yes. And then I even owned a chainsaw, and I bought it in a chainsaw because up there they were changing from these huge ones to smaller ones. A steel chainsaw. It was just.
Is it a special violin cutting chainsaw?
It's for us. It's a nice. I think every violin maker has to do it sooner or later once.
You have to stop right there. This is where I'm talking about that special sauce, the X factor. He Edgar's so humble, but the reality is he can get in one of his many Vespas and ride up to the mountains and cut the same trees that Stradivari used. Not everyone can do that in the world, and you can make a brilliant instrument from South Korea or Japan or Canada, but still, they don't have the opportunity to drive to the exact same forests that the masters use, cut the tree and bring it down. There has to be something special about that experience. At least knowing the people that today, you probably know the people that do it, and you can select the wood before it leaves Italy. You can select the best of the best before it gets shipped out and exported.
For me, it's obvious. I can just go there. Why should I go to somewhere else? But I think competitors are not sleeping, and I'm sure some other people also go there and get it. But there are actually few people who are willing to pay that more for the Italian spruce, let's say from the Val di Fiemme, or the real maple from Bosnia. So it's always depending on individual makers out there, but most of them actually just take whatever they get and they work with that. Yeah.
Let's finish out our wonderfully informative luthier lesson today with this last but important discussion about the varnish. And what I've learned, and you can correct me, is you have spirit varnish and you have oil varnish. And to give a good reference to what this is for those of you watching, they're both quality and they both make your instrument look beautiful and bring out the sound. Yet, if you know about painters, you have a painter that specializes in watercolor and another painter that does oil canvas. And they're both beautifully vibrant colors, but the process of making the paint is very different, and I think the way it creates the art is different. My father was an artist. He preferred oil over watercolor, but he could do both. So for your different lines, your Scala Perfetta, Linea Macchi, could you talk about what varnishes are you use for them, and is that correct to think about the watercolor and the oil?
I think this is a very great way of comparing it. Now the watercolor in violin making, it's a spirit varnish, and you just have to think that after these 12 years of polymerization of the oil varnish, it's from the chemical point of view is very difficult to understand the differences, and that's why the world is a little bit so divided regarding the varnish which has been used. But just imagine an artist like your father who was painting with oil varnish with his plate, and he certainly bought a lot of different colors, but then you mix yourself your colors because you need it in a different way and a different shade of appearance, and or you prefer this one. There comes a lot of personal ingredient into that color, and that makes the picture itself. And on master instruments, it's all the question of making something which reflects exactly your taste and your style. And this is on a master instrument more important because you somehow identify with what you're doing. I like it to sit with my instrument, which I have made all by myself in the varnishing room. There are less layers. And every layer, when you put it on, you certainly have to adjust a little bit the jar of varnish, and a little bit here and a little bit there, and you mix some more here. It's not that you go, like you read in some books, that they went into the pharmacy and just took a big jar and then they just painted all the instruments the same way. Even Stradivari, I don't believe that. Everybody has its own individual preferences and is adjusting it to its own way, and that's why I use the oil varnish on my instruments. But on a cello, where the body is bigger, the difference of the varnish is, at least me, I cannot hear the difference. It's really, imagine I varnish all my double basses with spirit varnish because I don't have such a big UV box, so I just varnish it with spirit varnish. And on a cello, I doubt that you can hear a difference. You asked me, and how comes that somebody wants now a oil varnish? It's because they were reading in books and they are more convinced that this is more how it should be or has been made by the old makers, and since it has been is a handmade instrument, and then they want something like this.
Because people would like to know the options and is it available, your linea Maki with an option for the oil varnish? And it is available. There's a surcharge for it. You can discuss it with him, but it is possible. But you do spirit varnish on both of your levels, just your linea Maki and your Scala Perfetta, which, in your professional opinion, doesn't change the sound, but it definitely changes the look.
Okay.
Yes, it has to. It does. It does. Let's end the interview with always something I love to do. Because if I was there, I would be looking at all those 1, 2, 3. I think you have 6 cellos behind you. Could you please walk us through what you have behind you?
Oh la la! This is now a good question. We have here a 7/8 Scala Perfetta, okay, which is with a one-piece bag, and I think I just made it because recently there were so many 7/8 cello, and then I said, hey, we make it. I put it on even the new version of the Wittner fine-tune precision pegs with the palisander rosewood pegs.
Can I see that? Because I don't have that one. So it's a finish.
It's brown, you see.
Is it plastic? Is it?
It's plastic. It's plastic. Yes.
Is it a sticker? But is it actually stained? Is it a sticker that peels off?
I cannot see that it is peeled. I think it's the plastic itself is made like this, and then here it's plastic. It's or metal plastic, dark black. So
the tips are wooden. That's really nice looking. I like mine and it looks all black, but that's really nice. I think every single cello should have precision pegs. I think friction pegs, even though I had them on my cellos for like so many years, there is no reason to go friction pegs unless you have an antique instrument, unless you like that. It's just technology is now there. Why should you use anything else?
And then we have here a Scala Perfetta Stradivari, a little bit more red here, darker looking. And this is, I think, pretty red for me, okay?
So these two are seen next to each other. The one you picked up, they're both Scala Perfettas, but look at the color of the varnish. The varnish is different color, yes? Between the first and the second you showed us?
The first one is the 7/8, this one is the Stradivari.
But the color is different. How did you create the different color?
It's just a little bit more color inside, and then you have these extracted colors from wood in the spirit varnish, and then you put a little bit more, a little bit less, and we try to do it for purpose, different colors, because sometimes somebody wants something a little bit more light, or somebody is dreaming of a red cello, or this dark red like this is actually a typical color for the Montagnana. So this is probably why your picture is so red, and then by having a copy of the copy, it's getting more and more red. But the Montagnana usually is a dark, deep red like this, but it's not everybody loves it that much. It's personal, the color. Then here we have another Stradivari Linea Macchi, a different color. We have now 2 Linea Macchi Stradivaris, okay? Here, without the classic wooden ebony bags, how I put it usually, okay?
Is the same type of varnish used for the Linea Macchi as opposed to Scala Perfetta? What makes this varnishing different on the Linea Macchi?
This one I'm taking right now is a Linea Macchi. Now on this call you don't probably see the huge difference, but if I take now this one and this one, the Linea Macchi, this one here is more shiny, and this one, the Linea Macchi, we are finishing the varnish at the very end and polishing it by hand, so it is shiny, but not as shiny as the Linea Macchi, the Scala Perfetta. So it is shiny, but then we polish it with oil and with a little bit of alcohol on a rag, and then we go like this and we polish it everything, so it gets a different kind of shininess.
Is it still a spirit varnish between the two?
It's same spirit varnish, yes.
Where does a one person go to read a book about the different cello models? Like, do you have a suggestion that's not written in Italian per se, but in all your books out there, where could a person buy a book and get more information about cellos, not violins, because we don't care about violins. It's a cello channel. Let's talk about cellos only. What book would you recommend for a person to research these names of your Ruggieri, of your Montagnana, the names that are specific to our world? Do you have a book that you can recommend?
Nobody asked me that question, and if I'm thinking of it, there is not a single book I have which is specifically on cellos. There is not a single book.
Okay, maybe a general book on the world of violin making, but I really don't care about violins. I honestly don't care. I want to learn about cellos, and I don't want to buy a book, and I'm certainly, people watching this don't want to buy a nice 300-page book. We have 250 pages on the stupid violin and only 30 pages on the cello. No thank you. This is a completely different beast, a completely different world. I think it's more beautiful and a better instrument. I'm throwing mad shade, but the point about it is I'd love for maybe in the future, leave a comment on my video, leave a comment on yours. What book would you recommend at least to learn more about the Ruggieri and the Montagnana cello?
But I have a good point. I'm just writing right now my last details for my cello configurator, and soon when you come to my cello configurator, it will be that you can click through all the models and you can learn about all the models. Okay, so I'm doing exactly that, so you don't have to go on the violin configurator right now anymore, and you can learn about all the models. I have at least my experience, and then certainly I will tell you that it is better to make a master cello with this one or a Scala Perfetta or a Linea Macchi, but I will explain every single model a little bit closer on my configurator.
I'm glad that you're making the configurator directed toward us cellists, because we need that, because Yeah, it's cooler to be a cello player than a violinist. Well, thank you, sir, very much for sharing your wonderful time. Another wonderful luthier lesson has been concluded. Do you have anything you would like to share besides the fact that, yes, he has updated the configurator on his website, violoncellomaker.shop.
Yeah.
And you can see, this is the Scala Perfetta right here, and you can really see and listen to them as well. So lots of wonderful things that you can do online and even listen to it if you wanted to listen to it there, right there. And even see some videos of your cello player playing it. Very cool. I love how modern you have made this process.
I'm happy that you like it. The configurator actually is on its way. This is the web shop, but it's I'm working on it. And the key point is, if you choose something from the web shop, it is exactly that instrument with those pictures, okay?
I want to thank you very much for sharing your precious time with us. I hope all the blessings of the violin gods and God himself to come down on your shop. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful knowledge with us. And I wish you all the best this year.
Thank you very much. Have fun. Play every day. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Ciao, 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 ciao.
Ciao.